Hello, fourth graders. Welcome to lesson 6.4, Common Denominators. Please pause to write the lesson number and title in your notebook. Today's lesson objective is I can use equivalent fractions to find and create fractions with common denominators. Please pause to write the lesson objective in your notebook. Today's lesson also has one vocabulary word. Our vocabulary word is common denominator. The denominator is the bottom number on a fraction. A common means when they are the same. So a common denominator is when the denominators in two or more fractions are the same. So in my example here, I have 2/5 plus 1/5. And on the bottom, both of my denominators are 5. Please pause to write the lesson vocabulary and example in your notebook. In today's Unlock the Problem, it actually says we're going to use some folding paper and some shading. I'm going to draw a picture, but if you would like to fold the paper along with me, that's great. Let's read it. Martin has 2 cakes that are the same size. One cake is cut into 1/2 size pieces. The other cake is cut into 1/3 size pieces. But he wants to cut the cakes so that they all have the same size pieces. So we want to find what we call a common denominator. A common denominator means that we find a multiple, remember that's what we can count by, a multiple of the two denominators, and then we make them match. Fractions with common denominators represent whole numbers that are cut into the same number of pieces. So for this activity, it says you need a piece of paper to fold and to shade. It actually says you need 2 pieces of paper. One you're going to fold into halves and one you're going to fold into thirds. So step 1 says model the cake that's cut into halves. So I'm going to draw a picture here. So here's my rectangle cake, and it is cut into halves. So if you have a piece of paper, you would fold it into half. And then step 2 says now we're going to model a cake. So here's my rectangle cake again. And this time I'm going to cut it into thirds. So there's my thirds. And then I'm going to fold the sheets of paper so they both have the same number of parts. And we're going to draw the lines on the fold. Well, if I take these 2 pictures that I drew and I made them into one picture, so here's my rectangle cake, drew it a little bigger. I cut it in half, and then I cut it in thirds so that it looks like the other 2 just put together. Now, how many pieces do I have? I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now I have 6 pieces in my cake. And now I can cut my halves into 6 because 2 can multiply to 6. And I can cut my thirds into 6 because 3 can be multiplied into 6. So the cakes, in order to be even, are going to be cut into 6 equal pieces. Now they have a common denominator. To show what this looks like in numbers, we're going to write the numbers 4/5 and 1/2. And we're going to find a common denominator so that they both have the same number of pieces in our whole number that it's cut into. So the way that we do that is we want to find a common multiple. So remember in our unit before, that means we're going to count by that number until we find something they have in common. So if I'm skip counting by 5, I would say 5, 10, 15, 20, sorry, that's a 5, 15, 20, 25, 30. And if I'm counting by 2s, then I would say 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. And then I would look and see what they have in common. All right, 5, 4, 6, 8. Oh, look, 10. They both have 10. So that means since they both have 10, I'm going to make both of my denominators 10. So, in order to make 4/5 into something over 10, I need to multiply both the bottom and the top. 5 times 2 is 10. And remember, whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top. They're tied together. So if I multiply the bottom by 2, I'm going to multiply the top by 2. So 5 times 2 is 10, and 2 times 4 is 8. So now I wrote an equivalent fraction. 4/5 is equal to 8/10. 8/10 is not simplest form, but for right now I don't want it in simplest form. I want it to have a common denominator as my other fraction. So let's go ahead and look at 1/2 and make that as a fraction over 10 as well. So I have 1/2, and in order to make 2 into 10, I need to multiply by 5. And whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top. 1 times 5 is 5. So there's my fraction, 5/10. So I can write 4/5 and 1/2 as 8/10 and 5/10. And now they both have the same denominator. They both have a denominator of 10. All right, and when we have a question here that asks us, are 4/5 and 1/2 equivalent? Are they equal to each other? Well, once we made them both into tens, it's kind of like saying, oh, when all the pieces are equal, how many pieces do I have? So we look at our numerators now. Are 8 and 5 equal? Well, no, 8 is more than 5. So no, 4/5 and 1/2 are not equal because 8 is more than 5. When we made them have the same pieces and we looked at it in the same way, we can tell which one is bigger and which one is smaller. Now this is important here, this error alert. So it says, remember that when you multiply a denominator by a factor, this is our rule. Whatever you do to the bottom, you have to do to the top. Because our fractions, in order to stay equal, in order to stay true, if we manipulate them or change them, we have to do it to both parts. Make sure all these are written down. We will continue on with questions 2 and the share and show section tomorrow in class. Great job, 4th graders. When you're sure you understand this lesson, go back to your teacher's website and complete the exit slip. See you tomorrow.